Alright troops, so this should be good for A-level and first years as well, but news, you need to know how to pick apart a news front page with a few skills. One of them is media studies skills, and the other is language skills, which some people don't enjoy English literature or English language, but you have to be able to pick apart the language and what it's used for, how it kind of either targets or perhaps suggests something to its audience, how it perhaps creates shock value or some kind of emotional response, what it's doing in terms of representation and groups, institution, audience, all that kind of stuff, and language as well. So Daily Mail is obviously a mid-market newspaper. Some would argue it's kind of more a blend of a tabloid and a broadsheet. It's certainly more towards the tabloid than it is the broadsheet because it's focused on celebrity, it's focused on kind of sports, it offers a lot of gossip, especially the online version, the Mail Online. They are meant to be two separate entities run by two separate editors. But so, a celebrity story at the top here, who's winning and losing in brackets with an exclamation mark to emphasise, kind of the competition element of it. Not that you can have a competition about growing old. The celebrity couple age race with a larger picture of a rather gaunt, zombified looking Michael Douglas, Hollywood actor, with his wife Catherine Zeta-Jones. On the other hand, a rather kind of handsome, greying Pierce Brosnan with his wife, who I don't know the name of, alright? So already, the positioning here is kind of against Michael Douglas, looking really old, and that ageing is a bad thing, even though it's natural and happens to all of us, versus rather kind of smart-looking Pierce Brosnan, and there's kind of the leading bit there to see pages 30 and 31. Alright, so already in terms of values, you might expect in the inside adverts for things like anti-aging creams from beauty companies, perhaps, because the Daily Mail is also very popular with female readers. Looking on the sidebar just here, so Meghan's sister and a family row with Harry, see page 5, and the caption is estranged Meghan Wright and her half-sister Samantha. Quite a grainy picture, probably taken from Facebook or other kinds of social media, alright? And the use of first name is quite intimate, alright? So in terms of, again, language skills, it's quite an intimate relationship. The audience are expected to know who Harry is. It's not Harry Styles, it's Prince Harry. And Meghan's, as in, Meghan Markle, actress from Suits and many other US films and TV shows, now the kind of becoming part of the royal family through marriage. So the familiarity with the royal family is assumed, and also, more to the point, the Daily Mail is a very pro-monarchy paper because it's conservative, because it's right-wing, and so on and so forth. Now the headline: a nation hooked on happy pills. So a tiny bit of alliteration, but also the fact that happy pills is a very derogatory way to describe antidepressant medication. So most mental health charities will say in their kind of reporting guidelines, and I think even the National Union of Journalists say, that when you're reporting on mental health issues, you should kind of treat it more scientifically, not kind of making a joke of it or sort of being derogatory. So to say happy pills almost suggests that, you could be happy without the pills, or that somehow you're in this fix where you've got to take a pill just to be happy. It's almost linking it with kind of illegal drug usage, whereas actually, these are prescribed medications by doctors. A nation, obviously, so suggesting that all of Britain or all of the UK or all of England, which is patently not true. So it's very much exaggeration or using hyperbole to put, a bleak picture of the way medication's used at the moment. So this was from December 29th last year, 2017, so quite a recent one. And the first bit here, I've forgotten the keyword for this, so I'll put it on a text overlay. GPs treble doses of antidepressants as Britain heads towards top of world table, and then a nation hooked on happy pills. So there's almost kind of a shame here of being statistically top of a world table for prescribing antidepressant medication. GPs, so general practitioners, but again the audience know what GP stands for. Treble, alright, well okay, treble and heads towards, you've got a bit of a problem here. You've got a quantity of treble and heads towards top of world table. There's no time scale for this particular thing. So we don't know how long it's taken to treble the doses of this medication. It could be over 2 years, which would be fairly worrying, but it could be over longer term. And I seem to remember that it's over quite a long period of time. So the statistics here are something like the UK rate of consumption for antidepressants is 90-something.2 doses a day for every 1,000 inhabitants, according to a think tank called the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, which is a cross-European body that deals with issues of policy, law, tax evasion, and what was the other thing? Crikey, I can't remember, I'll put it on the text. But it says this is up from 37.6 doses in 2000. Now, you know, so 2000 to 2017, that's quite a long time. Nearly 20 years is a long time to perform a medical statistical study, all right? So actually to say we're heading towards the top of the world table, that's taken quite a long time, and the trebling of doses has not happened as quickly as this headline and kind of the other bit here is suggesting. It's not as quick as that, all right? But again, it kind of re-emphasises hooked in the first bit of the text just there. Prescription rates have nearly trebled in 15 years, putting the UK fourth among 29 Western nations. So it's positioning us to think that this is a bad thing, that we shouldn't be proud, we shouldn't be hooked on antidepressants, that we should be able to live our lives without being medically prescribed these so-called happy pills, when actually the problems are much more complicated than that. It could be that actually low employment rates are causing people to go on to antidepressants. It could be stress in the workplace. It could be the diminishment of certain legal rights for certain groups of people that are causing this spike in prescriptions, again, over a very long period of time. So actually, to put the facts there, the statistics and the language are meant to elicit a kind of shock reaction or a negative reaction of some kind from the reader, who may well disagree with GPs prescribing and over-prescribing or over-medicating. You know, perhaps comparisons to the US, there might be an editorial on the inside that says, you know, we shouldn't be like the US, over-prescribing medication for every little problem and the bloody blah, and it kind of fits in with the overall message that the paper would probably carry. Elsewhere, let's see. The research body study said patients were increasingly willing to ask for help, meaning every rich nation had seen a rise in drugs, in use of drugs such as Prozac. But there's significant variation in consumption of antidepressants between probably the other nations. Well, that's quite interesting. Actually, one of the reasons this statistic has gone up is because people are asking for help more and more. They're not just keeping depression and stress and mental health issues as a secret or as something to be ashamed of. They're more open about it now. Society is more accepting of it now, as it is, you know, generally speaking, society kind of becomes more liberal as the years pass. So actually, that's quite a significant fact. You know, the headline doesn't say patients ask for help and get the help, or patients need help and have antidepressants to get them out of their health, you know, their kind of mental health issue. It's negative, you know, a nation, the whole country, hooked. So it's a drug addiction, on happy pills. You know, pills is shorthand for ecstasy, you know. So again, there's a lot of negative connotations there. The language is very pejorative, very negative, and you need to be able to pick apart the language because as far as I can remember, I think on the 29th, no other paper had this as their lead story. So the data may are clearly pushing an agenda, or they're ignoring something else at the same time. Let's just see if I can find that other example. I may not have got the 29th to be fair, but we shall see. No, Friday 29th. So on that same day, The Guardian led with Facebook and possible trouble over Russian alleged interference with Brexit, or all that kind of stuff. A historical thing about how Margaret Thatcher didn't want to meet with a panda or fly in an aircraft with a panda or something like that. I can't quite remember what the story was now. Financial Times talked about kind of financial move with various businesses, you know, one taking over the other or whatever it might be to make 3 trillion of money. Italy going into elections coming up in March. The Telegraph, negative about Jeremy Corbyn trying to rig an election. Patients told, ask Dr. Google before your GP. So there is a medical kind of spin there. Obsessive gaming is a mental health issue, I guess that would probably say. So this is looking at health again, but again not in the kind of such a pejorative way. Negative from the Times, the best paid family doctor earns 700k in the NHS, but is criticising a system that condemns pay for GPs. What else we got? Drunk tanks could help ease the burden on the NHS from the Eye. The Daily Mail, obviously we've seen that one. So the Daily Mirror, looking at trying to get rid of parking charges for people who are visiting hospitals for long periods of time. The Sun, ignore all that completely. That saved our bacon. What earth is this? Oh yeah, this is an investigation into whether bacon gives you cancer or has cancerous chemicals inside it or not. So you can carry on eating as much bacon as you like. Plus, obviously, the Sun wouldn't be complete without a half-naked lady on the front of it now, would it? So mostly I've looked at things like how the sidebar, how the headline, it was the kicker. It was at the top, a small sentence is called a kicker above a headline. If it's underneath, it's called a strap line, all right? But how the language leads to pejorative meanings in this case. So, you know, let's see, there's an implicit shame, as I said, about being at the top of this table of medical usage of antidepressants, all right? And actually the tone of the language is potentially misleading, because to say it trebles as Britain heads towards the top of the table, as I said, this is over 17 or 15 or 20 years, so it takes a long time to get there. So, you know, you need to read behind the headlines really and think about, you know, is this a positive story? Is it a negative story? Who's the source? Who's saying this thing? So back on the story, I think it was with the Times or the Telegraph, just earlier, about GPs pay. Let's see. So the best paid family doctor earns 700k from NHS. It says that patient groups condemn a system that lets GPs set their own pay. Well, that's coming from a patient group who are of course going to be campaigning against high wages for doctors and so on and so on. And you know, from NHS is again another negative kind of connotation that they shouldn't be earning so much money from the National Health Service. But this isn't every doctor, and it's the kind of the biggest example of it. You know, with the superlative of best. So again, you've got to look at the language and who the source of the story is. I haven't got time to go over this one now in detail, but again, just think about who's the source, what's the spin on the story, where's the bias coming from, is it left wing, right wing, and so on. And just try and really read between the lines. It's not enough just to say, oh, the headline means this, or oh, well, the story has got a quote from that important person, or oh, the picture's like, you know, quite nice because it's celebrating the win at cricket, and you know, you can't just say what you see. It's not enough to just look at the literal details. You've got to look at the connotations of everything, of colour, of shape, of the way the picture's been edited, the way the headlines are there, everything about the tone of the article. That's got to be looked at in quite some detail. I think I may have already done. I'll either email this out to you or I'll put it up onto Moodle so you can get access to it, but this is a kind of a real detailed breakdown of one front page, looking at not just, you know, what's the page lead, what's the caption, what's the headline. It's also got some language analysis at the bottom there. Some, not all, because, you know, 7 lines of a paragraph is not necessarily enough to, you know, do well in an exam, so just bear that in mind. Obviously we'll do more of this in practice in class as well, and for the A-level linear lot, you've got to do comparison of 2 headlines as well, 2 front pages, so just be aware of that. Anyway, hope that was helpful. I'll see you on the next one.